Found us again. No stoplights. Want to thank our sponsors, Francis Marion University, Carolina Bank, Micky Finn's, Victor's, Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op, McCall Farms, Pepsi of Florence, PLC Commercial Real Estate, and McLeod Health. We're trying a lot of different things. I said earlier, and I'm saying again, I never intended nor expected this to be an extension of Wake Up Carolina. We do 20 hours of conservative radio. I just told our next guest, I'll introduce him in a second, that we live in a nation, really live in a world where people are hesitant, nervous, afraid, tentative, fearful of the consequences of saying what you believe. And I kind of want to be more liberated than that. And I hope we can eventually get to a place where people can speak their mind without fear of consequence or repercussion. And when I invite these guests and I have these strong opinions and we have these conversations, I always think about these sponsors. And I want to say this. I don't think there's a single sponsor on this list that believes I improved their market share. They're doing this because I think they trust that I really and truly want to contribute to my community. They want to do the same. I can't do it without some financial backing. So when I read these companies and enterprises, it's not about, I don't know, it's not about the customer relationship, but rather the relationship they aspire to have with their community. And I want to redundantly thank them for their support of this feeble attempt at podcasting. Our next guest, and I want to say this, we found a lane, and I don't know that we stay in this lane forever, but right now there seems to be an appetite out there amongst our subscribers and viewers for stories about businesses. And I've been in business in Florence County my entire life. My father was a business owner in Florence County, so I've heard these stories, and I kind of sort of know more about these stories than most, but I felt it was important to archive, memorialize some of these stories, not from my interpretation, but rather the horse's mouth, so to speak. We've had Robin Talon and Dale Barth and Tim Norwood, Henry and Marion Swink. We've got some others lined up that we're working on scheduling, and this guy's been a friend of mine for a long time. His father was a friend of mine, and I really got to know the family. It goes back to politics. I was on county council. They're trying to build a new hotel, and our codes people don't want to behave. Our planning department doesn't want to behave. They reached out to me knowing I was a business guy and just kind of laid it out and said, hey, man, we don't want to do anything wrong. We want to be beneficial to the county. We want to be a good corporate citizen. But damn, I mean, we're trying to build this outdoor fire pit, and it's just, we're wondering if we're going to ever get it built or not. And I'm not saying I intervened and saved the day, but I did go to planning and zoning and ask for them to be considerate of some of the requests this business was making. Gray Rains is with us, and Gray, what your official title is?
Managing partner of the Rains Company.
Okay, well, when you say managing partner, I got a bunch of notes here because I've known Gray a long time, and I've admired, and I mean this sincerely, Gray, I've admired and respected, because you and I come from a similar place. You're 18 years my junior, but we were all of our lives involved in a family business. My dad built truck beds. I knew eventually I'd probably build truck beds as well. I toyed around with the idea of doing something different. But Gray, in the beginning, let's go to the Bible in Genesis. In the beginning, there was a man named Rock Rains.
Absolutely.
But you said it came even before that.
It did. Actually, I'm fourth generation. My great-grandmother, Gigi, she started it with the roadside truck stop in Hartsville, South Carolina, in the middle 50s.
Gigi's truck stop.
It was, yes.
So Gigi was Rock's mom.
Yes.
Okay, along comes Rock.
Along comes Rock.
And that would have been when? I mean, when did Rock begin his business endeavors along the interstate?
Oh, that would have come when 95 was built. So you may know better than me. The year 95 came through Florence was the year Rock came over and said, I see opportunity with this interstate coming through.
Because he was an entrepreneur.
Because he was an entrepreneur.
And somewhat of a visionary. How much do you remember about your grandfather?
A lot. Yeah, Rock was a big part of my life. I mean, I remember going to the truck stop and getting warm donuts. I remember first time playing a poker machine, not that I should have been, but he turned me loose with a roll of quarters and I just hit the buttons. But no, I mean, I remember Rock's truck stop right there on 95 and TV Road. And I mean, it was a big part of my life. I remember my dad working there, my Uncle David, and, probably Probably I was 7, 8, 9 years old. And so Rock's Truck Stop was something that I distinctly remember.
So is it fair to say that that sort of experience got in your blood even at that early age?
Yeah, I always loved the family business. I mean, from day one, whatever we were doing, I wanted to be around my dad. I wanted to be around my grandfather, my Uncle David. I love being around him. I love seeing the way that business worked. I mean, we've always been in some kind of business. I mean, my dad, he was always looking into something. So it was fun to see and something I wanted to be a part of.
Okay, from what I understand, Rock worked hard and played hard.
Yes, he did.
Racing was in the family.
Absolutely. He and my father were both accomplished race car drivers.
Walk us through that.
So they my dad quit by the time I really remember it, and my mom gave him a choice to either be the father of 4 kids or keep on running around racing cars with Ronnie Howell and Frank Sessoms.
The number 22 car.
The black
That's
number 22.
That's how big a redneck I am. I remember. I went I remember the beginning of the race, not so much the end of the race.
Oh, yeah. I remember getting in the back of, my mom had a red GMC Jimmy, and we'd get in the back of it and go to Florence Motor Speedway and watch my dad race and maybe watch Rock fight a little bit. You know, you never knew exactly what was going to happen out in Timminsville. But, man, racing was a big part of who we were and what we did. And, I mean, they loved it.
And Rock was larger than life, Gray?
Yes.
To you and a lot of us.
I mean, not only just to me, but I heard that from all over the place. I mean, he was a character and, I mean, just salt of the earth. That's such a good guy. You know, I mean, it's just a strong man. I mean, he did the right things and expected other people to do the right things. And I just remember he was the quintessential guy that he'd never start a fight, but he'd damn well finish one. So.
Yeah. Well, you race cars, you got to learn to fight. If you don't learn to fight, you don't need to be racing cars. Now you make up and eat at the Waffle House together. Or you borrow a tire from somebody the next week. So Rock is that larger than life figure, but your dad's there. What sort of while Rock is building a business, your dad's doing what?
He's learning the business, but my father always had an eye for growth. I mean, he understood how businesses evolved and where the next opportunity was going to be, and he took us out of truck stops into convenience stores. And then my father's the one that launched us into our hospitality business. I mean, he's the one that saw opportunity, you know, late 80s, early 90s. We had 3 acres behind a Texaco gas station, and he said, you know what, it's funny, we were reading the trade magazines. You know, it's different than what we do now, but he was reading the trade magazines about hospitality, hotel, motel business, and he called Marion and said, hey, I want to build one of your courtyards you've got. And they said, well, tell us all about your experience in the hospitality business. He goes, I've never built one. I just got a little bit of land behind me. And they started laughing at him. And they said, Mark, go get some experience and call us back when you figure out a little bit about what's going on in the hospitality world. So he made some other phone calls. They kind of told him the same thing. But, you know, he was fortunate to land a Super 8 franchise. And Frank Sessoms from Darlington built that for us, and still one of the nicest Super 8s. You know, still standing right there as a Super 8. And, you know, they doubled the size of the footprint, and it's all brick. And, you know, it's just funny you look at it now versus what a Super 8 built in the 90s would have looked like anywhere else along the interstate. And, man, we got into that business, and, man, my dad just had a knack for it and loved it. And we bought the Hampton Inn next door. We bought the Best Western from, you know, a buddy that's now a really close friend of mine. And, so we're off to the races.
So when Mark is deciding to diverge the business into some other sort of growth opportunities, as you said, is Rock on board? I mean, do you remember, you're young, but do you remember any of the conversations between your grandfather and father? Because my grandfather and father had questions. My dad wanted to charge hell with a water pistol. And my grandfather like, whoa. Was there any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the time that I remember, it's really when we decided to build the Residence Inn here in Florence.
That was a big decision.
It was a big decision. It was a debate on whether or not Florence could support an extended stay hotel in the market. And I just remember that being some healthy conversations amongst the family. And I'm sure it happened all the time before I got involved. But that was really the one time where it's like, you know, Courtyard's doing well, Spring Hill's doing well. Why do we need to build an extended stay hotel? We don't know that type of traveler is in the Florence market.
And they probably had multiple conversations that you're not very aware of, is to
absolutely,
maybe some colorful conversations with one another.
Colorful. It was always fun.
I've heard that. I've heard that. So you're doing what? I mean, you're doing what any kid would do, any young person would do. You're going to school. You're doing your thing. What did Gray Rains do from the time Mark decided to make that decision to the time you fully committed yourself to the business?
Yeah, so I worked in the business growing up. My first real job in the business, I was a short order cook at the Courtyard Marriott. Here in town, I was slinging burgers, for my buddies and that type of thing. And man, it was a ton of fun. I look back on that, and I had a blast. I had a great bartender that kind of trained me up, and she'd work the front, and I'm in the back cooking chicken tenders and cheeseburgers. And but that was really kind of the first job I took on, and then fell in love with the game of golf. It was real, just really enjoyed it.
Where'd you get that from?
My Uncle David.
Okay.
Yeah, my Uncle David, he took, I played soccer. I kind of messed my ankles up a little bit, and I was looking for an opportunity to do something else. And I remember he was going out with some college buddies out to Oakdale, and said, hey, come on and tag along with me. It's one of those things, you find it, and it clicks. And
you had a knack for it?
Yeah, I felt like I kind of had a knack for it. I picked it up fairly quickly. I actually ended up going my senior year of high school to IMG Sports Academies in Sarasota for golf. And as I was finishing up there, getting ready to graduate high school, that's when my dad got sick. So that was the year. That was summer of 2000.
Okay, so Mark gets diagnosed with what?
A rare form of pneumonia.
And it was pretty severe.
It was catastrophic. I mean, he was given I remember he went to McLeod here and then ended up at MUSC in Charleston, and he spent the entire summer there. I mean, it was such a rare form of pneumonia that they never saw that type of pneumonia, and then anybody that got it never really saw their way through it. And he spent that whole summer in a coma. He spent that whole summer fighting for his life. He was given a less than 1% chance to live. And man, typical my dad, he found a way to beat those odds.
Was Rock living in 2000 when Mark was going through all these struggles?
Yeah. So Rock was down at MUSC with my mom.
Because it's rocked his world.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the guy that ain't scared of nothing is probably scared to death.
Yeah, without a doubt. We all fear losing a child. To watch my grandfather go through that. I mean,
watch my dad do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's just, and my mom's one of the most amazing women in the world. I mean, not only, for what she does in the business now and where she's picked that up and learned the business, but also, she never left my dad's side that summer.
Gray, Mark gets sick, but he doesn't pass.
He doesn't pass.
He makes it through, but he's pretty impaired after that.
He is.
He's limited. What changed about you? What changed about Rock? What changed about your family, Mark, when he was given a 1% chance to live? He makes it through that, but it's obvious he's not who he was prior to being sick.
Yeah, I mean, when he came out of that coma, it would have been in August of 2000. I mean, it took him almost a year to get home. He learned to walk, talk, read, write, to eat. He had to learn all of that again. I remember watching and seeing him fight every step of that battle, and my mom did that to him. But that's where it's credit to my Uncle David. I mean, David was back here running the hotels, running the gas stations. I mean, Rock was in Charleston with my dad and my mom, and David he made that happen. I mean, that's the story of a family business, right? I mean, that's where you count on each other, and when somebody's hurting or dealing with something, that's when we pick it up.
Okay, but Mark was impaired, but I talked to your father a few times after that. It always seemed that he maintained that burning desire to be independent.
Without a doubt.
I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me. I don't want anybody believing they've got to take care of me. I've got this issue. There's no doubt about it, and I know I'm not who I was. But I don't need sympathy.
It's never going to stop me. I mean, that was his attitude. I mean, he kept finding a way to. I mean, we built a hotel in 2003. I mean, we built the Spring Hill Suites Marriott here in Florence, and that was when I came into the business. 2003, I played golf at Francis Marion and had an awesome time there. And but it was time to join the family business.
Did you think about doing something other than getting into the family business when you're at Francis Marion?
Yes. I mean, I did, because that was originally what my dad wanted. My dad wanted me to go somewhere else, get some experience, see how the world does it. I mean, I was kind of, I wanted to go get a corporate job at Marion or somewhere, try to see how big companies are run,
and then come back.
And then come back. I always wanted to be a part of the family business. I mean, that was my goal. But the thought was, let's go see what else is out there. But at that point, I mean, with how sick my father was, and we had a hotel under construction, and we still had convenience stores, we still were in the gas business. The opportunity was there, and I took it to come back. And
you come back into business. Your father's sick, but he's working. He's running a company.
He's running it
very ably running a company.
Running it from a hospital bed at the house.
And the company experienced a lot of growth during the period of time your father was diagnosed as not terminally ill, but really sick.
Yeah, I mean, we had one hotel at the time. We had the Courtyard Marriott, and then we built the Spring Hill in 2003.
The staggered way you built those hotels, when you built the first, was it always the intent to build another and then another and then another, or did that just happen by demand?
It just happened by demand. I mean, Florence saw growth. Florence saw Honda and GE and ESAB. I mean, I think about the demand drivers that were really pushing things. I mean, that was I can't remember the big pharmaceutical company that was
Irix. City.
No, the other one out past Rock 10. What would that have been originally?
Yeah, that would have been Hoffman LaRoche or
way back in the 90s.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they were a big producer of rooms. So, we've always subscribed to the theory of, if you can do it in your backyard and make money, then let's do that.
And Mark never said, "Hey, let's slow down a bit. I've got this issue with my health."
It was naturally slowed down. I mean, it naturally slowed down. I mean, where I think he would have told you we were going to be in 1999 versus after 2000, the goal was always, it's year by year, and let's figure that out. So when I joined, Spring Hill was halfway through construction, and I took on kind of my father's eyes during the construction phase. I'd go take pictures on a camera, go get it developed, and then bring it back, and he'd show me what's wrong, and I'd go argue with the contractor and try to figure it out.
But there was a laser focus on Florence.
Absolutely.
Right?
Florence was home.
There you go. And that's where we're going to make our hay. That's where we're going to build properties, and we're going to do better than anybody else at running these hotels. So when did you guys start? I'm jumping ahead here, but I want to make sure we get the sequence of events right. So Mark beats the odds in 2000. You guys grow the business for the next decade or so. Yeah. Mark passed away when?
11 years ago.
So Mark passed away in 2013.
2004, late 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's as personal as you can imagine. And I lost a 29-year-old sister, and it sucks, and you never forget, and you move on, but you don't move on. You struggle, but you don't struggle. Between 2000 and 2014, Mark is in the middle of everything.
He is. Yeah, he loves, he never lost the desire to be in the hotel business.
Passion for the business.
Loved it.
When did he begin to entrust in you responsibilities that were not flipping burgers or taking pictures?
Yeah, so I mean, I cut my teeth in the operations world really 2003 until 2009, and that was 2009 was 2008 was significant because that was the first year we decided we were going to build a Residence Inn, and it was a big project. It was a big project at the time. I mean, it was, I can't remember, probably $10 million, and that was when we decided to bring in outside capital as investors. And that was really a significant move for us. I mean, because everything up to that point, we had always said to do it family, but as these projects got bigger and debt got a little tougher, or, wherever we were in the cycle, we decided to bring in some outside capital.
Did Mark allow you to be instrumental in some of those
Absolutely.
meetings and negotiations?
Yeah, at that point, I had taken on right in early 2000 or 2008, I had moved into more of a development role because
that was a lot of fun in 2008.
Yeah, we were getting ready to build, 2 or 3 hotels. We were looking at some properties outside of Florence and looking at some different things. And, then 2008 hits and my development job goes to, let's keep running what we got and hope we hang on to
and
it.
hold on for dear life
exactly.
Hope the bank doesn't take everything we've got. That's most businesses we're dealing with in 2008. And we'll get to some of those cycles in just a couple of seconds. But I want to make sure we hash this out. So Mark passes away in 2014 and nothing about your world has been the same since.
No.
I mean, there's no way. I mean, he's such an instrumental and vital part of your existence.
I had this conversation with my wife the other day because she thought it was odd, and we unfortunately lost a really close friend here in the last week, and you always kind of think back, and I just said I've never gone a day that hadn't thought about my dad. Not a day. I mean, I've missed him.
There won't be a day.
There won't be a day.
You'll live to be 100. There won't be a day,
and I'm perfectly happy with that. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, I'm serious. There hasn't been a day that I hadn't missed him.
Well, I mean, Greg, that's one thing you and I have in common. And I've said this in the weirdest way imaginable. When you work in a family business and your father is the dominant male figure and he's your mentor and he's your biggest criticizer and he's your biggest encourager, he is a ghost and a hero all at the same time. I mean, that's a weird way to look at it, but you've lived that dynamic. I lived that dynamic. What about, this is a weird way to ask you, but what is better about Gray Rains because Mark Rains was his father?
Oh, wow. I mean,
because he was a super dude.
He was.
And I mean that sincerely. Mark Rains was one of the best people that I've ever met in my life.
I tell people, I mean, he was the best example of all of it. I mean, he was the greatest father. He was my best friend. He was, what became a business partner, but I mean, a business mentor. I mean, he just did things the right way. He's just a great guy.
But Gray, in 2014, he's gone.
He is.
But you're a young guy.
I am.
And there's a lot of life to be led, and there's a lot of business to be taken care of. So what did you do? I mean, after Mark passes away, what are Gray's priorities? I mean, how long did it take you to kind of digest? Okay, it's not going to ever be the way it was, but I've still got all of these things I'm responsible for. And David and I have to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I think the process, I mean, I think it was different in that my mom joined the business after my father got sick. I mean, she was by his side. She learned the business. David was very active in the business. So it was the three of us. So it wasn't me by myself. So I think that was a huge piece of the pies. And then there's things that my father did. I mean, I was named president of the company in early 2013. I mean, there was a path that he had already kind of set me on. When we built Hotel Florence, I mean, that was a huge project for me in that my dad was there, but he also said, go figure this out. I mean, he was not necessarily sold on that a hotel
tax credits and all this craziness.
Historic tax credits that there was a need for a boutique hotel in downtown Florence, and he always supported me. But that was an opportunity that I chased that a lot. With him guiding me, but there was a lot of rope there for me to go figure it out.
Is it in my life, and this is about you, not me, but I think this is where we have a very common bond. In my life, my dad's gone, but he's never gone.
Never gone.
And I think about these decisions that I've got to make, and I almost hear him.
Yeah.
And I almost hear him say, "Don't do that," or "Do it this way." Don't do it that. Is that similar? I mean, am I being too psychoanalytical?
No, all the time. I mean, how would my dad play this? How would he look at this? No, I ask myself that every decision I make.
But you had a bold grandfather, a bold father, hardworking people. You've got to make your mark. I mean, you've got to take the baton and go wherever Gray Rains takes Rains Hospitality. What has been your plan? I mean, you guys have grown exponentially, and that's why I want to talk to you. I mean, people don't realize how many properties do you own, develop, or manage?
57 properties across the Southeast.
And you said as far away as Dallas. You've got some relationships
large
there.
Portfolio
Waynesville Country Club is kind of near and dear to your heart now.
It is.
Is that Gray Range's vision?
Yes. I mean, it's. I would say that the growth has certainly been something that I've pushed. I've been a part of. I mean, that's. We moved outside of Florence in 2013 with the property in Charleston. That was something that I always wanted to see, that opportunity. I mean, we had phenomenal relationships with all the brands, and there were other markets that were growing. And I mean, I spent a lot of time down in Mount Pleasant trying to scratch out a deal. I mean, Chris Scott, who's been on this show. I mean, Chris and I, we had a development company together for a long time, and we still do a lot together. And he and I figured out Spring Hill Suites right at the base of the bridge in Mount Pleasant.
Weird question. What do you miss about Range's hospitality being a mom and pop? And what do you enjoy about being it? I mean, it's a big, diverse company now. How many employees?
Just under 2,000.
Okay, you can't run that company like Rock ran a truck stop, or you guys ran a one hotel company. No. What do you miss about the simplicity of a mom and pop? But what do you really enjoy about the challenges that come along with 2,000 employees and 57 properties?
Yeah, I think what I miss being in the properties. I don't spend as much time in the hotels as I used to. I mean, my office was in a hotel forever. I mean, I miss.
It was in your blood.
I miss being on the ground. I think that's where Waynesville's been a lot of fun. I've spent a lot of time at that property, putting the moving pieces there. It's a very complex property. So, that's been a lot of fun. And, I miss knowing every one of our associates. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, for years, if they were on our payroll, I knew every one of them. And I probably knew them pretty well. And now the goal is to know all of our GMs, and I mean, we have 56 folks in our corporate office. I mean, this year I started a one-on-one call every quarter or each quarter with every one of those 56 people, and it's a 30-minute call 3 to 4 times a week because I still needed that connection. I think it's great for them, but it's really good for me. I mean, it's partly it inspires me after each of those calls. And whether I'm hearing something good or something bad, it helps. It's a big part of why I get up every day and go get after it. I mean,
it's as therapeutic for you as it is informative.
Absolutely.
To keep in touch. Let's go back to the Hotel Florence for a second, because I remember hearing a rumor that there was. Now I'm stupid enough to follow these guys, but I remember hearing a rumor that there was a development group thinking about building a hotel and a restaurant, kind of an upscale restaurant in downtown Florence. And I remember thinking, I'm a damn fool, but I'm not that crazy. Why? What made you guys believe that there was a chance to be successful in downtown Florence with Victor's, one of our sponsors, and a restaurant located in the hotel, and the boutique renovated older building turned into an exquisite hotel?
Well, I mean, let me go back to kind of how all this came together. We had renovated our Courtyard Marriott. We were having a Florence economic development business after hours type program, and I remember I was sitting at the bar talking to Tim, and Tim said, I'm thinking about moving Victor's, and okay. And he goes, and then we kind of got distracted a little bit, and then he comes back, he goes, we should do a boutique hotel. And I said, well, I mean, that's my dad's always wanted to do one. I've always wanted to do one. We going to Charleston? Where are we going? Where are you? Charleston, New Orleans? You're thinking of markets that boutique hotels really work, and Charleston was obviously the first because it's close to home. And he said, we're going to downtown Florence. I looked at him, I said, you have lost your damn mind. And he said, no, you got to meet Chris Scott. Let's go look at the building. He goes, I know where I want to put Victor's, but I think you guys, let's do a hotel. And I came down with David Raines and my wife, Jenny, and we toured the building, and it was bad. I mean, that building was awful. And we walked out of there, it's pouring rain. There's rain coming through the roof. And she said, they're crazy. They lost their mind. And I said, no, I'm all in. I think we can figure this out. And, man, it's another one of those projects. You set so many small milestones, and you're like, if we don't get here, we're just walking away and heading somewhere else. And we get here, we might do it a little bit more. And we started down that path, man. And it wasn't all. I mean, it took us 2 years of working together, but I mean, the real credit for that thing, I mean, you can't say enough about Stephen Wakila. I mean, I miss him every day as mayor of Florence.
He got it.
I mean, what he did for the city of Florence in those 8 years moved us forward for 20 years.
A little bit like Joe Riley.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could argue Riley's the most prominent politician, the most effective politician in the last 100 years of South Carolina. Wakila did something similar to that, and we've argued conservative and liberal, but I think you would agree he wanted Florence to do well. Removed of any political ideology or differences we had about government philosophy, Stephen got it.
Florence was first.
And he was kind of the ramrod. He, along with the Bruce Lee Foundation, Francis Marion, and Hugh Leatherman, I mean, they all coordinated some of these things. Was Hotel Florence, I don't want to say, did it give you more gratification and satisfaction, but being as unique as it is, do you look at it different than you do some of the other properties?
Absolutely. I mean, we're maybe ever given one chance to truly have an impact on your community. I mean, to really make an investment that changes the fabric of downtown. And not that it was just Hotel Florence. I mean, we were part of the library and the museum, but
you were the first private money to go down there and put capital at risk.
Well, we followed. John Keith was the first.
Yeah, you're right. John Keith deserves a lot of credit.
Dr. Keith was the first. He had a couple restaurants right there on Dargan, and I mean, we get credit, but
he would have been the original pioneer.
He was original pioneer. I mean, the size and scale in which we came in and did something was certainly something that a lot of people noticed. And
is that one of your favorite properties?
Hands down, still is.
I don't want to say is it your favorite property.
No, I mean, you could say it is. I mean, it was the point in my career. I mean, the historic the historic credits.
And if anybody hadn't ever done that, you need to. You need to try that one time in your life. It'll age you about 10 years in one.
You say you'll never do it again.
Yeah, it'll age you about 10 years in one, rest assured. Yeah. But it's something you're very, very proud of.
Absolutely. I mean, to do that with Tim and Chris and deliver that product. I mean, I still remember the night we opened, we walked outside and Tim and I were standing there, and I look up at the sign and it's lit and it's beautiful and it's the only light on the street. And I look at him, I was like, what in the hell have we done? But man, Florence supported us. Florence helped make that happen. And we've, it's been a great property. I mean, what's followed behind that has been just absolutely tremendous. We would never have done it without the love of Carolina Bank and the belief in us. I mean, the belief in what we can bring to the table. I mean, the Beasley family and Carolina Bank and Brian Falcone.
They should build a plaque for Carolina Bank downtown Florence.
Absolutely.
And I mean that sincerely. If you walk in a banker's office, I mean, we did some things across the street after you guys proved it could work, and Carolina Bank was the only way that we could ever make that happen. And I think when you see names and you see developers and managers, sometimes the bank doesn't get the proper recognition, but none of that would have happened downtown if not for Carolina Bank.
No one else would have ever stepped up and made the loan that they did in the way that they did that allowed Hotel Florence.
Let's go to banking relationships. We'll get in the weeds a bit here. I've got to believe, I mean, I know this to be true. I don't run hotels. I've never been in the hospitality business, but it's very suspect to cycles.
It absolutely is.
And cycles at times mean struggles. And struggles at times mean working with lenders. You saw 2008 when I say the world blew up. That's my technical definition of what happened in the financial meltdown. And then you see COVID. What made, I don't want to say what kept you up at night, because a lot keeps you up at night when those things are going, but walk us through what it was like to be responsible for a company in the hospitality sector when the world blew up in 2008 and then COVID comes along. And the government basically says, hey, everybody's got to stay home. Well, I'm smart enough to know if everybody's got to stay home, that ain't good for the hotel business. Yeah. So walk me through the preparation, the evolution, what you've learned through those tough times in the cycles of economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the need and the requirement to make tough decisions quickly, I think that was one of them. I mean, at one point, we laid off. Within 2 weeks of truly being impacted by COVID, we laid off 910 people. And we did that because that was the only way we were ever going to bring them back, 100%. And I still remember David Raines and I went to every single hotel and we sat down with every single team. And to date, that's probably one of the hardest conversations, to look at good people who have never done anything wrong and tell them we don't have a place for you right now is the hardest conversation you can ever have. But it's also what enabled us to bring them back faster. It enabled us to get through it. And then, yeah, I mean, my day was spent talking to our investors and talking to our lenders because no one had ever been in that. So everybody wanted to know what you were going to do.
Well, great. When you model, I mean, I'm in business. I mean, when you model, you anticipate these cycles.
Right.
And you anticipate some are more severe in their nature, but nobody anticipates revenue going to zero.
No.
You quoted a number to me that I thought was interesting. If you don't mind, share that number.
No. I remember we had a great Spring Hill and Mount Pleasant, historically in the month of April, would run mid-90s occupancy at about $180 ADR, average daily rate. And, you know, it would do that year in and year out.
And you're making money there.
We are making money. It's a very successful hotel. And the month of April of 2020, it ran 6% at $84. And it's hard to keep the lights on when that moves. And, you know, at that point, that was still at such a time of chaos that, you know, they were projecting 3 million people were going to die June 1. And, you know, we're going to deal with this for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And, yeah, you sit there. There's a lot of sleepless nights, and you're sleepless because you're worried about your people. You're worried about your family. You're worried about a sickness and illness that is taking lives, and then you're worried about a business that you're going. Is this going to happen? You know, what's going on here?
I get paid to be angry with government 20 hours a week. I mean, and that's a pretty good job, you know, getting paid to be angry with government. The only thing I wish, Greg, is that government would come clean and admit some of the mistakes they made during that. Because, I mean, you know, I've often said the biggest difference in the public and private sector, and you'll agree with this, the public sector didn't sign a personal guarantee. I mean, the public sector would have to collateralize. You and I both have always had to find collateral or find a way to pay the lender back. You're talking about Carolina Bank, but I mean that was a very difficult period of time for all businesses, and I got to believe hospitality would have been affected as much as anybody.
Right up there with all of them, and you know, like
when did you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I mean that is the one thing we talk about. I mean, I'm fortunate to sit on panels at conferences and different things, and they're like, "Well, you guys made it through." You guys did better than this company. We were lucky. I mean, we were lucky to be in the Southeast. We were lucky to have the leadership that we had, and that we were late to close and early to open. And even as bad as March, April, May were, by the middle of June, you know, our beaches were back open, our restaurants were back open, and everything was still closed in the Northeast. So, you know, we started, even though we still had restrictions in place, we were able to start knowing that, okay, it should get better from here.
And it did.
It did. It still took a year or so to really dig our way out of it, but no, it started swinging back faster than some of our really close friends that had California-based portfolios or Northeast-based portfolios. I mean, it took them almost another 24 months to start coming out of it.
And the hole gets deeper.
Let's
I don't ask you to give your personal take on every property you developed or manage or own, but I do want to ask you another, and that's Waynesville Country Club.
Yes, sir.
I've kept up with you and Ron Glancy through Facebook. Never been it, never seen it. I don't golf, but it seems to me you're smitten. And Ron is smitten with that property. How did that come about?
There's nothing like the mountains of western North Carolina, especially when you're here in August. You get up there, it's about 25 degrees cooler. So my business partner, my counterpart, our other managing partner in Raines, David Tart, it was summer or May of 2020. He had developed a hotel that we operated together in Asheville, North Carolina, called the Foundry Hotel. And if you get a chance, it's gorgeous. I mean, the #1 Hilton Curio product in their system, #1 hotel in Asheville. We had a guy that was an engineer at the hotel, and David's an avid golfer as well. And he'd get up there and work a little bit, and then they'd go play golf. And David called him and said, "Hey, let's go play golf this afternoon. Weather's gorgeous. We got to get outside." And the guy said, "Well, I've already made a tee time at my place." And he goes, "But my place is bad. It's real bad." He's like, they said, "Man, I just want to get outside and drink a couple beers and, see what just I need a fresh breath of fresh air. And David gets over there and they tee off, and it's real bad. It's as bad as it can be. And but man, he called me halfway through the round and he said, "Gray, this owner's in a little bit of trouble." And he goes, "This may be the most beautiful 200 acres in western North Carolina." And he goes, "There's something here." He said, "Get your ass up here." Those were his exact words. The next week I went up there, and there's a 100-year-old inn as part of the property. And man, we just started down a path. It was just like Hotel Florence, where it said, we got no business being in the golf business. We joke around and tell everybody we bought a historic hotel and they tossed in a golf course. But, we...
But Gray, you can be smitten or fall in love with something and the numbers still not work. I know you well enough to know you did a deep dive on the numbers.
Absolutely.
As comfortable as you are, as much as you want to disclose, when you fall in love with something and you want to be a part of it, there's still another side where the math has to work.
Without a doubt.
How do you balance that? I really want to do this, but there's no way we make money at it. I really want to do this, and I think we can make some money here.
Well, that ultimately, we're a business. It's what drives the decisions we make. We're fortunate to have an amazing SVP of investments, Kristen Myers, that lives here in Florence. She's been with us a long time, and we've got great investors that believe in us. That's it. We have to build a compelling story that we know we can deliver on for our investor group, and I think that's the biggest part of it. And that's where we start. As much as I can love a property or I can see potential in it, the truth is we've got great investors that want to make money, and that's our goal. And we've got a really good track record of doing that. We've got a couple projects out of COVID that we're still getting to where they need to be, but our track record, we're still batting 96% on it. So
that's good. That's a good batting average.
Yeah,
what's the advantage of being flagged, and what's the advantage of not being flagged?
Well,
and what does flagged mean?
Yeah, so that's an association with one of the big brands. For us, that's Hilton and Marriott. We have phenomenal relationships with them. We do business with the other flags, whether that's Hyatt or IHG, and we love what they bring to the table. But for us, it's a rewards program. It's a traveler. It's a corporate traveler. It's a leisure traveler. Those hardcore point towns. That's part of it. You're working all week and you're earning those points, and then when it's time to spend them, you're spending them with your family on vacation. And that brand gets that much more powerful every year as they add millions upon millions of rewards members.
What do they ask of you? They don't give you that for nothing. They ask something in return.
Absolutely. You have to keep a high standard of quality product. You have to meet their standards 2, 3, 4 times a year. And, you have to renovate your hotels constantly. Every 7 years, we know we're going through a big PIP, a property improvement plan. But it pays off. And then we also look at it, it's an insurance piece too. When the cycle goes down, the brands outperform everybody else because they have the money to keep advertising, to keep growing the business. They're also a gorilla when it comes to negotiating with online travel agencies. What they're able to leverage across thousands upon thousands of hotels. What a branded hotel pays to an online travel agency versus you're
talking about the Expedias of the world.
The Expedias of the world. It's half of what an independent pays.
Because they have that, bulk purchasing power like Walmart would.
Mary, I can say we've got 12,000 hotels, and if you want us in your online travel program, you're going to give us the best deal.
Great. I don't like being in businesses that require me to be trendy. But you're in a business that kind of sort of requires you to be. I understand there's a core way to do things, but there are trends in travel that you've got to keep up with and adapt to. Bleisure, woven. To me, that speaks of trendiness. Absolutely. But in reality, the traveler's looking for the newest, latest, greatest experience.
You just got to be on the forefront, but you don't want to be so far ahead.
Who decides what the travel trends are?
So, that's a great question. Ultimately, the brands they spend more money than anybody studying the traveler. And then for us, it's throttling them back to understanding what the traveler's willing to pay for.
They want Ritz-Carlton and pay,
Hampton Inn prices.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's really the question that we push back on. And, we're fortunate. David and I both sit on several owners' councils with the brands. So, we're right there in the heat of it with Hilton and Marriott and Hyatt and, the others of, that sounds great, but what is the guest willing to pay for that extra amenity or that extra, but there's things that, we certainly pioneer at times that, are misses that the brands force on you. And then 2 years later, they're like, yeah, we kind of missed on that a little bit. Sorry you spent $50,000, but, we thought it was a good idea.
Maybe we'll get the next one right.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get the next trend right. What's the life cycle of a hotel?
So it comes back to construction type, comes back to market. I mean, you take a Hotel Florence, it's timeless. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you keep renovating the rooms, but it's got a long life cycle. A wooden construction hotel, maybe 30 years.
What has the internet done to your business? The adaptability. You kind of told me one day that, I guess we could disclose this. You were venting to me one day about you'd rather someone go to the Marriott website than go to the Expedia website, but you got to be aware of all that. That's a big deal in your world. That
Absolutely.
Digital, the consumer that gets all of that information digitally and makes that reservation online doesn't call 1-800-MARRIOTT or 1-800-Range Development.
No, it's the direct bookings are our most efficient way. So that's our director of sales, our GM, our front desk getting that room booking. Then from there, it's coming through the brands, and then after that, it's a bit of the Wild West. But
why are people traveling so much, Gray? Why are so many hotel rooms in America booked night after night after night? My wife and I decided, spur of the moment, to go to Charleston, and then we didn't. And you know why we didn't? I'm like, wow, what, really? I don't want to go to Honolulu. I want to go to, but what do you, you're into business. Travelers are your consumers. Why do you think people have this insatiable appetite to travel and stay in hotels?
Well, we could really get deep here. I think during COVID, people had a major acquisition of stuff. They bought things. They're sitting at home. They're ordering off of Amazon or wherever, and it didn't necessarily fill that hole up. And then you were told you couldn't travel, and then people came back full bore. And I think at the end of the day, when all's said and done, the experiences are what you remember. You don't remember buying that shirt or that pair of shoes, but you certainly remember a weekend in Charleston and that great dinner you had, the time you were with friends, that birthday party. At the end of the day, the experience-driven traveler is not going anywhere. If anything, they're just going to continue to ramp up. I think that we realize the importance of that human connection.
Is the bleisure, I'm no rocket scientist, but I would be led to believe that bleisure, we make up words every morning. So this is, hope-tomism. We're not hopeful and optimistic, we're hope-tomistic. Bleisure is the business and leisure traveler combined. Fair enough?
Absolutely. I was talking to a good friend of mine last week. Her and her husband both work jobs that they travel a lot, but also remotely. They can be wherever they wanted to. And she's like, we just took a remote work week to Fort Lauderdale. We'd work in the morning, and then we're on the beach in the afternoon. That is only going to happen more and more and more. People want to work from fun places. They want to be around fun people. And yeah, the bleisure side of the world is definitely, it's here to stay.
I want to go back to your personal life and tell as much as you'd like to tell. I'm an open book, and I think you kind of are as well. My father died in 2004. And a big business got dumped in my brother and I's lap, whether we were ready or not. And I remember being so consumed with that business and laser focused on that business that I may not have been as good a father, as good a husband, as good a friend to some of the dear people in my world. How have you tried to maintain some semblance of balance in a business that is growing as fast as you guys have and having a wife and kids and responsibilities there?
I'm fortunate that I way outkicked my coverage with my wife and then 3 great kids. But man, I will tell you, it's a battle. It's something I think about every day. I have to try to find that balance of because my work I enjoy so much. As much as there can be trials and tribulations in what we do and how we deal with it, man, I still love what I do every morning when I wake up. I'm passionate about it, but I'm also passionate about being a great father, about being having great relationships with my kids. I mean, I saw my father do that, and unfortunately, I've seen friends that haven't done that as well. And you see folks that they may pile up a whole bunch of money on the table, but they don't have a relationship with their kids. They don't have a relationship with their wife. They don't.
That's important to you.
It is. It's very important.
But that comes from your grandfather and father.
Absolutely.
I mean,
my mom.
Yeah. Well, your mom.
My parents. I think that family was a big part of who I was growing up, and it's a big part. I mean, we still do Sunday dinner at my mom's house with my brother and my sisters and their kids, and I mean, I want my kids to know their cousins, and it's important to me. I think that, but there are times that. I mean, just a month ago, I was gone 3 or 4 days a week for every week in March. But I get home and love up those kids as hard as I can.
Is it fair? Do you understand? I mean, I'm sure you do. Most people get put in charge of things in their mid to early 40s. You've been in charge for a goodly period of time, and you're only 42. That's a bit unusual. I mean, it is, even in a family business. I mean, it's kind of unusual for somebody to have started as early as you did, have been entrusted the responsibility of running a business. How much better are you now than you were when you became president of Rains?
Yeah, significantly better. I mean, you always think you want something until you get it, and then you're like, wow, what that's getting hit by a freight train. But no, I mean, every day, every year, I mean, working to improve the business, working on how we grow the business, making sure we make smart decisions. I think that as we've grown, our goal is, we consider ourselves small in the industry. I mean, we've got guys that are.
What's big in the industry?
I mean, Aimbridge is the biggest.
What is that? I mean, that's your world. We don't understand
9,000 hotels. They manage.
That's pretty big.
They manage 9,000 hotels, and but they're not who we're trying to be. I mean, at the end of the day, we consider ourselves small but selective. I mean, we have a selective group of investors. We have a selective group of properties we go after, and then on the third party management side, I mean, last year we turned down 11 opportunities. And other companies would have taken all 11 of them. Because
what is a third-party management? I saw that on your website. What is that exactly?
So that's a service we offer that, Ken Ard would go buy a hotel, and Hilton would tell you that you can own this, but you can't manage it. You don't have revenue management and operations and
you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Accounting. You need someone that's been there and done that. So, a pretty significant move that David Tart and I did back in 2 years ago now, we acquired HP Hotels. Kerry Ranson and HP Hotels. Kerry I looked up to for a long time. He's a close friend. He had some partners that were reaching retirement age, and they were looking at, exiting the company, and Kerry wasn't sure, what his next steps were. And it's, we're at the Hunter Hotel Conference in Atlanta, and we passed each other for 30 seconds. And he kind of expressed some frustrations to me, and I looked at it and I said, why don't you do something with us? And he's like, you think that's an opportunity? You think that there's a chance we could all do something? I said, absolutely. I said, let's figure this out. And so I set up to meet with him. He and David Tart and I were set to meet the next day. And Kerry never made the meeting. So we kind of wrote it off. We said he might have had a big night the night before, and just 7:30 meeting went right past him. And we give him a whole bunch of crap about that. That's a really fun part of the business. And we ended up acquiring HP about a year later, and they brought 20 years of nothing but third-party management experience. That's all they had done. We had historically always been owner-operated. So it was somewhere we wanted to go because of the infrastructure that we had. But, sometimes to jumpstart a business or jumpstart a new avenue, it's easier to acquire than it is to start from the ground up. And at that point, Kerry's now president of the management company. And, man, we're just excited about where that's growing. I mean, we just added 17 hotels in Dallas, added a hotel in Charleston last week, one in Sherrill, South Carolina with Clarendon Properties, Greenville, North Carolina. So, yeah, the third-party side's very, very active.
I don't want to offend any of your former employees or current employees. How many have been with you since the beginning?
Man, we've got several. I mean,
That's a testament to the company.
Absolutely.
I mean, that really, I always felt that if a company can find a way for someone to consider it a good job for 20, 25, 30, 35 years, you're doing something right.
Absolutely. We've got a huge part of our corporate team have been with us really. I mean, Kristen Myers. I mean, I still remember.
My buddy Ron Glancy.
Ron was with us. He left for a few years. He came back. Ron's one of the original guys.
And they can relate to the story. They've lived the growth of the company.
Absolutely.
And that means something to them as well. I mean, I would imagine they feel somewhat of I don't want to say an investor owner, but they feel
they're
very proud.
We look at them as partners. I mean, Marcy Cameron, Dan Paola, I mean, folks that have been an integral part of our growth. I mean, we look at them as partners.
Okay, last question. What lies ahead? I mean, if we do a podcast 10 years from now, you don't know, I don't know. But if things go as planned, what does Rain's hospitality look like 10 years from today?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, we simply operate on, we want to do fun projects with fun people in fun places. So we're not chasing numbers. We're not trying to get to some threshold, and that's our measurement of success. I mean, at the end of the day, if we can create a career path for as many people, we can build fun projects and hopefully make our investors a bunch of money.
What's a fun project?
Well, I'll tell you one that we're really excited about that is just now public. We've partnered with the Shepherd Hotel Group to build the next Shepherd in Columbia, South Carolina, in partnership with Carolina Life. And if you're familiar with the Shepherd Hotel in Clemson, they're partnered with Clemson Life, and that is building a program and a Department of Education focused on students with special needs and Down syndrome. And there's a amazing property downtown Columbia, old fire station, historic project. We're honored to be a part of it. David Tart has been working on it for a while. H.S. Russell, one of our other partners, is integral in making that happen. And we hope it's one of many Shepherds that we're able to partner with them on. But it's a phenomenal mission. It's going to be the best hotel in Columbia. And now that we can publicly kind of share that information, it's one we're particularly excited about.
10 years from now, is Gray Rains living in Florence or Waynesville?
Florence is home.
Is Ron Glancy living in Florence or Waynesville?
I think there's a good chance Ron's living in Waynesville. I think he lives there now. I mean,
he moved today.
He may still have an address over in Hartsville, but I think he'd live in Waynesville tomorrow.
Well, you've done a great job telling the story, man. It began with your grandmother. Great-grandmother. I'm sorry, Rock's mom. It
Gigi.
went to Rock. It went to Mark. And I knew that we had that in common, how important a figure your father was in your personal and your business life. And I want to say this, Mark Rains was as good a man as I've ever known.
He's the greatest.
And I mean that sincerely. Not commanding attention, not had a burning desire to be in the bright lights like some of us. You know how some of us are. But just such a gentleman. An absolute gentleman, and I know you miss him, but he would be so extremely proud of. And if God lets him watch podcast, maybe he'll give him 55 minutes to watch this one. Thank you, man.
Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
I really appreciate it, and I've said earlier, we're trying to tell stories of local businesses. If you guys know anybody out there that has a compelling or interesting story, contributions made to our community, please let us know. And I want to once again thank our sponsors, Francis Marion University, Carolina Bank, Micky Finn's, Victor's, Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op, McCall Farms, Pepsi of Florence, PLC, Commercial Real Estate, and McLeod Health. And once again, I don't believe these folks are sponsoring this podcast because a phenomenal talent is behind this microphone. I believe they're doing it because they want to invest in this community. This is home for me. It's home for Gray. He's pledged for at least another 10 years. It'll be home for him. But I want to thank our sponsors. And once again, to you who subscribe to the podcast, who watch the podcast, thank you very, very, very much. And if you know anybody out there that has, an interesting, compelling story that would be interesting to share to our listenership and community, please let us know.